From Royal Communications Incorporated, good morning. Welcome to King's News Broom for the 5 minutes of news from Liberia and the rest of our one world. Today is Wednesday, January 7, 2025. My name is Cornelius Johnson presenting first the headlines. Liberian Senate repasses put reform bills against President Joseph Boakai previous veto as government affiliate and political commentator Henry Costard alleges pro tem Nyomli Kanga Lawrence of pursuing self-interest. Agent of Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency Maron Swain accuses the agency acting director Vazaro Biako of assaulting him for a napkin. LD Public Relations Department describes the assertion as false and misleading. Nobel Peace Prize laureate Lema Bowie describes Chile ex-president Charles Taylor administration as total fear, intimidation, and gangster regime. Away from home, President Donald Trump says the U.S. oil industry could be up and running with increased operations in Venezuela within 18 months after a surprise military operation removed President Nicolas Maduro from power. In Central African Republic, President Faustin Archange has won a third term after securing an outright majority in last month's presidential elections. Provisional results show the news bulletin versus of the newsmakers are all packaged in this edition of the program. We take a very short break to be right back. Thanks for being there. Up next is the Bulletin of News with the birthday boy, Kwame Brown.
The Liberian Senate has repassed what is described as its sweeping port reform legislation. The Senate passage of the legislation is believed to be pressed ahead in defiance of President Joseph Boakai's veto, which many critics terms as intensifying a growing constitutional and political confrontation over the control, structure, and feature of Liberia's maritime governance system. According to a front page Africa publication, before the repassage vote, the Joint Committee reform informed the plenary that the president's objections largely limited to issues of nomenclature and formatting, including the table of contents and assessment that critics say significantly minimize the depth and substance of the council raised in the veto message. Many believe that Senate action signals a firm legislative resolve to dismantle the National Port Authority and replace it with a new regulatory and decentralized port management regime. Despite sustained objections from the president and strong legal warning from the Ministry of Justice. In the repass legislation, two interrelated measures, including the Liberia Sea and Inland Port Regulatory Authority Act of 2024 and the Liberia Sea and Inland Port Decentralization and Modernization Act of 2024 are factors. The Act repeal the National Port Authority Act, dissolve the National Port Authority, and establish 4 autonomous seaports in Monrovia, Buchanan, Greenville, and Harper, and at the same time create a new Liberia Sea and Inland Port Regulatory Authority with exclusive oversight responsibility over port and maritime activities across the country. Meanwhile, government affiliate Henry Costa has accused Senate Pro Tempore Nyombi Kanga Lawrence of pursuing self-interest bills for Liberia's port setup reform. Costa, a perceived Florentine political commentator, says the protem is bound on self-serving and foreign-driven interests rather than for the decentralization and efficiency of port system in Liberia. In a Facebook Live Tuesday, Costa alleged the protem Conga Lawrence push to restructure Liberia's port governance reflects past controversial concession arrangements, including the long criticized controversial concession arrangement, including long criticized APM terminal deal at the Freeport of Monrovia, which he said weakening national control and disadvantaged the country. Liberia Drugs Enforcement Agency officer in charge, that's Biago, Special Aid Agent Maran Sue, has accused him for punching his eye for allowing his uncle take napping that is normally kept in his vehicle. According to Swain, his immediate supervisor, Piaco, physically assaulted him in a vehicle during an official trip to Nimba County, leaving him with a painful eye injury. The LDA agent told reporter days after the incident that agency OIC action against a peer premeditated, noting that that he previously threatened by the younger brother of LDA Itin Hill, younger brother who is also an agent of the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency. However, in response to the allegation, the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency denied the assertion, describing it as false, misleading, and completely unfounded. The statement issued by LDA Tuesday said, at no time did the ITIN director inflict harm, issues threats, or engage in any form of assault in intimidation against any officer. In another development, the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency has suspended two of its officers for publicly assaulting a female who claimed is a drugs suspect. On Tuesday, various social media platforms were seen photo with video evidence of two LDA officers identified as Salomon Bondo and Faith Willie assaulting the female suspect. However, in press statement issued hours after the incident, the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency condemns the actions, describing it as unacceptable and in direct violations of the agency's code of conduct, which strictly prohibits assault, abuse, and inhuman treatment of any person. The LDA statement noted that the officers involved have been immediately dissolved and returned over to the Board of Internal Injury and Professional Standards for the investigation. Appropriate disciplinary actions to be called for. However, the LDA distances itself from what it terms as misconduct and warns all officers against abusing the authority entrusted to them to serve and protect the public. Nobel Peace Prize laureate Lima Bowie has sharply criticized Liberia's jailed ex-president Charles Taylor administration, describing it as gangster regime. According to her, the Taylor administration was marked by total fear, intimidation, and bad governance, which caused the country destruction rather than development. She at the same time rejected claims that the Taylor era brought order and stability in Liberia, arguing that the Taylor regime power was exercised through fear rather than institutions. The Nobel Peace Prize laureate also recounted how citizens' lives were placed under total danger, especially at checkpoints and during encounter with security forces. She added that protest against government was virtually impossible under what she described as an authoritarian regime, noting that one of Liberia's major gains since the end of the civil crisis is freedom of expression. Madam Bowie, however, urged Liberians, particularly the youth, to maximize freedom of speech and desist from abusing it, further cautioning politicians and political leaders against abusing power of personal gain. She made the remarks during an interview on Truth FM Tuesday. Nimba County Senator Samuel Coker has called for unity among the citizens ahead of the 2029 general election. Appearing on social media talk show Tuesday, Senator Koga urged all stakeholders within NIMBA to put their political differences aside and unite for the common good of the county. According to him, the current political division among stakeholder citizens, including local chiefs, will not help the county, but rather bring fragmented chaos among citizens ahead of the 2029 election. He urged local leaders and chiefs to stop putting aside people who are not in their political line, but rather bring them together and avoid what he described as self political ambition. The county senator noted that Nimba County is a common denominator for every Nimba citizen. As such, putting aside others for political reasons will only harm the county than bringing peace among citizens. Senator Coker further called on local leaders, stakeholders, and chiefs to peace as a way forward to the growth of the country. Grand Bassa County District Number 2 Representative Clarence Banks has accused former local authorities of his district for massive corruption during the administrations of former President George Weah. Addressing journalists Tuesday, Representative Banks noted that upon taking office in 2024, he invited the General Audit Commission, that's GAC, to conduct a survey in District 2, which he said uncovered serious financial mismanagement by district authorities. According to him, information gathered revealed that funds provided by companies for development projects in District 2 during the Weah-led government was misused and failed to translate into meaningful development for the people. The Grand Bassa County lawmaker, however, praised the Assets Recovery Committee for honoring his request and compelling the affected local authorities to restitute the mismanaged funds, stressing that no amount of money is too small when it is not used for its intended purpose. Representative Bang said the move is aimed to promoting transparency, accountability, and genuine development in Grand Bassa County District Number 2. Former President George Weah has provided clarity on the Chinese development, that's government suspension of the constructions of two overhead bridges during his administration. The former president attributed the suspension to geopolitical tensions between China and the United States. In 2018, during a forum on China Africa Cooperation Summit in Benji, the Chinese government announced several development projects for Liberia, including the constructions of two overhead bridges aimed at easing traffic congestion around the ministerial complex and along the SKT Boulevard. According to Weah, his administration had completed all the required documentation for the bridge construction but declined to become entangled in international political disputes. We are adding that Chinese government was seeking Liberia's involvement in what he described as border political disagreement with the United States, an approach he said his administration firmly rejected. He further explained that his administration's decision was guided by Liberia's long-standing historical ties and shared values with the United States of America. The former Liberian leader emphasized Liberia's traditional diplomatic stance for neutrality, noting that the country maintains cordial and cooperative relations with both global powers. Liberia on Monday joined members of the United States Nation Security Council to call for the immediate release of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, who was recently arrested by United States government. During an emergency meeting at the UN headquarters in New York, Liberia's permanent representative to the UN Ambassador Louis Brown, who spoke on behalf of the A3 countries, called for restraint. The Liberian diplomat urged all parties to de-escalate tensions and adhere strictly to international law. He emphasized the need for peaceful and political resolution in the U.S.-Venezuela saga. The A3 countries comprising Liberia, Somalia, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Statement also supported the position of the African Union, which calls for respect for Venezuela's sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the principles enshrined in the United Nations Charter. Ambassador Brown also warned that continued stability in Venezuela would have broader consequences for regional and global peace and security. He re-echoed what he calls Liberia's strong condemnation of the U.S. action, which include attack and removal of Venezuela's long-serving President Nicolas Maduro. And the Supreme Motorcycle and Transport Union of Liberia is calling for the immediate dissolution of the Ministry of Information for allegedly failing to carry out its constitutional responsibilities. Addressing a press conference Monday, President of the Union, Chokon Gray, urged the national legislature to ensure the Ministry of Information is dissolved. The Ministry of Information was established by an act of the national legislature in 1965 with the mandate to disseminate federal information about government activities and to serve as the principal link between the government, the media, and the general public. He also accused Information Minister Jerominka Pia and his deputies for undermining the integrity and reputation of the ministry. According to Gray, the ministry under the United Party-led government has deviated from its core mandate and has allegedly become a platform for the use of profound language and attacks against opposition politicians and other prominent members of society. The union's president, at the same time, cautioned President Joseph Boakai against highlighting projects such as the painting of buildings, police booths, and the repair of hand pumps as major developmental achievements in his upcoming State of the Nation's address.
Many thanks to Kwame Brown for the news bulletin. Indeed, if you just join us, a reminder you are in tune to King's Newsroom for the 5 minutes of news from Liberia and the rest of our one word. Today is January 7, 2025. My name is Cornelius Johnson, presenting One of our top stories this morning, Nobel Peace Prize laureate Labour Bowie describes Joe ex-president Charles Taylor administration as total fear, intimidation, and against the regime. Let's now bring you voices of the newsmakers. The Liberian Senate has repassed what it described as a sweeping port reform legislation. The Senate passage of the legislation is believed to be pressed ahead in defiance of President Joseph Boakar's veto, which many critics term as intensifying a growing constitutional and political confrontation over the control structure and future of Liberia's maritime governance system. According to Front Page Africa publication, before the repassage vote, the Joint Committee informed the plenary that President Boakar's objections were largely limited to issues of nomenclature and formatting, including the table of contents, an assessment that critics say significantly minimized the depth and substance of the concerns raised in the veto message. Meanwhile, government affiliate Henry Costa has accused Senate Pro Tem Nyomli Kanga Lawrence of pursuing self-interest bills for Liberia port sector reform. Costa, a perceived flaunting political commentator, says the Pro Tem is bent on self-serving and foreign-driven interests rather than for the decentralization and efficiency of ports in Liberia. In a Facebook Live Tuesday, Costa alleged that Pro Tem Kanga Lawrence push to restructure Liberia's port governance reflects past controversial concession agreements, including the long criticized APM terminal deals at the Freeport of Monrovia, which he said weaken national control and disadvantage the country. Here now is Henry Costa.
Senator Yomli Kanga Lawrence has proudly and openly sponsored, campaigned for, lobbied for a bill or two bills seeking to supposedly decentralize the ports of our country. The Freeport of Monrovia, the Greenville Port, the Port in Harper, and the Buchanan Port. You all know that. She's been involved with that. And they're trying to have us believe that their objective for doing this is to decentralize the ports, which, as if to say in itself singularly, would then make these ports cash cows, turn them into cash cows, generating millions and millions of dollars just like that by themselves. And that is what she would have you believe. But today, I want to present to you the evidence, the facts, the real motivations, the real reasons driving Yombli's very diligent efforts to fragment, to disintegrate, to bring chaos to the whole port system in our country. Why she's doing it? This has absolutely nothing to do with simply decentralizing. Nothing. And I couldn't sit down much longer to allow this lie that Yombli is trying to tell you, feed us, that she's doing this to decentralize the ports so that the ports can be effective. I need to tell you. You all know I don't speak often, but sometimes you just have to break your silence so people know what's going on. And that is the reason for me doing this today. It's a lie. It's a malicious lie. She is trying to do something completely different. And I have the facts. I have all the evidence here. Everything. I will present you pictures. I will post some of these pieces of evidence so you know the real reason Yombli Kanga Lawrence, somebody who has benefited from our political support consistently over the years, is trying to do the same thing that the likes of Edwin Snow and Robert Salif did with the Freeport of Monrovia, that today we've been dealing for more than 10 years with APM terminals. You all know how it has been, those of you who use the port of Monrovia. You know how APM terminal has turned out not to be a good deal until one of the ringleaders in helping to get the APM terminals deal passed, Edwin Melvin Snow, went on radio and publicly apologized. That is exactly what Yombli is trying to do. Fragment the ports and then concession out the Buchanan port to a foreign company. I have the company here. I have pictures of Yombli's people meeting with these people. I have everything here, including her family members and all.
He's Henry Costa, an affiliate of the rescue government. They're accusing Senate Pro Tem Yombli Kanga Lawrence of pursuing self-interest bills for the Liberia port sector reform. Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency officer in charge, Fizarro Biako Special Aid Assistant or Agent Maron Swain, has accused him of punching his eye for allowing his uncle tape napkin that is normally kept in his vehicle According to Swain, his immediate supervisor, Biako, physically assaulted him in a vehicle during an official trip to Nimba County, leaving him with a painful eye injury, the LDA agent told reporters days after the incident that the agency ORC actions against him appear premeditated, noting that he was previously threatened by his younger brother, who is also an agent of the LDA. However, let's now bring you the voice of Myron Swain.
So by protocol demand, if we give the ORC gifts, the protection should receive it. So I stood at the back to collect it. What collect it? Then Biago said, give it to me. He causing a relative said, give it to me. I said, no. It's my problem. Then Biago make a statement. He said, anything that will happen to you, you should take it.
His relative.
Anything will happen to you, you take it. Then in that process, a Boston Joe on the top, I called Boston. I said, Boston, listen to me. I will put you that one day for provoking me. Then the milk can take our picture, one black in the office, bring what they say, Biago, we are minor equal. What do you spend the man for? Get you spend the man every time you go. I say, you know why you do spend for? Because you feel a brother like OIC and I give you administration money. When I give you administration. So that part left. While discussing, the certain mayor brought everybody handcuff up again. Handcuff again, the handcuff. Then so they struck the kingdom and said, but chief, I beg you, where want him to help the. Then I told the city mayor, I said, okay, but then I contrasted the as a chief. I can't be here. When say mayor call me as a chief, I cannot be in Tapenta. My daughter from Tapenta, and fighting drugs and people crying for handcuff. What I would do on behalf of my director general and all the LGA, I will send my own personal cough, which I did. The same mayor pray for me. Everybody say, man, thank you. Then they always say, man, thank you, do well for because we can't leave for him tomorrow and go back home. Then I said, well, since I gave my call for my director, when I come to Morovia, I will buy my personal cough. Granted. So hopefully eating everything. When the other Biagos, when the other men speak in any sighting, they mean the battle of those. While going to the car, then Biagos said, where's the pole the body rest in? I said, oh, gee, I don't know. They said, we can't go for everything. Why people, you too dull, you too stupid. So I kept quiet. I said, no, I see abuse, I said, too stupid. I said, no problem. After that issue, when we enter the car, so Biagos said, he want to go see another house on the west side. So we drove 5 meetings, 5 minutes. I got that open the door for him. Then 5 minutes should go right behind me. Then we left the female officer in the car and the driver. Then while walking, they are going to use the remark, say, I will push you behind your neck. That's there. I tell them, I said, but director, why will you push me behind my neck?
The boss man.
Yes, for why will you push me behind my neck? They will keep quiet. We kept quiet. We went to the man's site. The man who spent the horse. They said the man who came. So he said, go tell Joseph to bring the car back. I went to Joseph and bring the car back. But there's something going upset or I don't know. Not my issue. So we go in the car. We move from the office to the junction. They are going to ask me, Myron, where is the napkin in the car? There I said, I spoke. I said, your older uncle took the napkin. Before I could turn, they are going to give me 30 left phone straight in my eye. I said,
however, in response to the allegations, the LDA has denied the assertion, describing it as false, misleading, and completely unfounded. A statement issued by LDA Tuesday said at no time did the acting director inflict harm, issue threats, or engage in any form of assault or intimidation against any officer. The Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency press statement added that the alleged incident did not occur as reported, adding that the agency believes that Myron Swain is being tergated with the sole intent of undermining the gains the LDA continues to make in the fight against illicit drugs in Liberia. Nobel Peace Prize laureate Lehman Bowie has sharply criticized Liberia Joe ex-president Charles Taylor administration, describing it as gangster regime. According to her, the Taylor administration was marked by total fear, intimidation, and bad governance, which caused the country destruction rather than development. She at the same time rejected claims that the Taylor era brought order and stability in Liberia, arguing that the Taylor regime power was exercised through fear rather than institutions.
Defiance of the president, defiance of the state. We live under an authoritarian regime. Don't let anybody, unless people were too young to understand. Taylor was not a joke. His boys were not a joke. You ever drove a car? I don't know how old you are. During Taylor's regime, you coming close to the checkpoint, flash your light. They will flood the living daylight out of you for putting a light in there. There was no system. It was a gangster regime. The mere fact that I can sit on here and express my thought and not worry that when I walk outside ATU would be there to beat the hell out of me or to whatever they feel like. Let's not take things for granted. And it started from Ernest. Let's just say Judy Bryant time. When the interim government took over, people, freedom of expression. Don't take it for a joke, because I travel to spaces and places where people can't speak. Even if their countries are developed, you dare not go on radio to castigate the president, cause man, cause that some of the things that I will see, it started from Brian time all the way to President Boycott time. As bad as we think it is, our sense of community. And I'm saying all of these things to you because these are the things that I track.
Indeed, if you just join us, a reminder you are in tune to King's Newsroom, 45 minutes of news from Liberia and the rest of our one word. Today is Wednesday, January 7, 2025. I'm Cornelius Johnson, angering. Story top in the headlines: Liberian Senate repasses put reform bills against President Joseph Boakai previous veto as government affiliate, and political commentator Henry Costa alleges pro tem Yombli Kanga Lawrence of pursuing self-interest. Acting or agent of Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency Mara Swen accuses the agency acting director of Fiazaro Biako of assaulting him for a knocking, but LDA Public Relations Department describes their session as false and misleading. Nobel Peace Prize laureate Lyman Bowie describes Joe ex-president Charles Taylor administration as total fear, intimidation, and gangster regime. Across the border, President Donald Trump says the U.S. oil industry could be up and running with increased operations in Venezuela within 18 months after a surprise military operation removed President Nicolas Maduro from power. And Central African Republic President Faustin Tadira has won the third term after securing an outright majority in last month's presidential elections, provisional results show. We take a very short break. When we come back, we'll bring you more developments on the program. Many thanks for being there and welcome back. Today's development now, Nimba County Senator Samuel Koga has called for unity among the citizens of the county ahead of 2029 general elections. Appearing on social media talk show Tuesday, Senator Koga urged all stakeholders within Nimba to put their differences aside and unite for the common good of the county. According to him, the current political division among stakeholders, citizens, including local chiefs, would not help the county, but rather bring fermented chaos among citizens ahead of the 2029 elections. He urged local leaders and chiefs to stop putting aside people who are not in their political line, but rather bring them together and avoid what he described as self-political ambition. Here now is Senator Samuel Koga.
I take a side with the president currently of the whole man now. So if a stubborn fella at this time, you understand, can champion that, it means that Joseph Boakai is peaceful and you bring it there together. So in Lima, we the stakeholder now, we got to put our ambition aside, our bigotry or whatsoever aside, and believe that Lima is our common denominator to unite and take each other our truth in house and sort out our differences. But when we are fragmented, Where those that in authority, the local authority and others are taking one side. Mind you, why is it so that you are in local authorities, you may be paramountcy, you may be clan chief, that you're taking instruction from local authorities, authorities. There are many people down there that feel that they will not listen to paramountcy or clan chief in the future. They will take different side. So you never know what I know. People who take this side now who refer themselves to this different group that try to denigrate other people and look down on other people. That even going to the extent and say, well, at this time we need to suppress them. When election coming near, we get with them. You're making big mistake. Like, it's a very big mistake you're making because some of all are tested. Some of all were in refugee life, we broke Canada to live. And then graciously God gave us the opportunity that we serve in a position that were more and we were able to have them around to our houses. And I think they're moving. We need to unite and we need to pull them. Taking this out. They will not have.
He's Senator Samuel Koga. They're speaking for Nimba. We now go to Grand Bassa County, where the District 2 Representative Clarence Banks has accused former local authorities of his district of massive corruption during the administration of former President George Weah. Addressing journalists Tuesday, Representative Banks noted that upon taking office in 2024, he invited the General Auditing Commission to conduct a survey in District 2, which he said uncovered serious financial mismanagement by the district authorities. According to him, information gathered revealed that funds provided by companies for development projects in District 2 during the Weah-led government were misused and failed to translate into meaningful development for the people of the district. Here now is Representative Clarence Banks.
I asked them when I took over in 2024 to please do a complete audit of projects that were allotted to my district by the government for my citizens under the George Weah administration. Unfortunately, none of those projects was done. It was not completed. Some you have not even seen the track of people being on that site. I did an independent study, and some of the bridges that were to be built were not built, although the government had given contractors thousands. I thank the GSC because there is no amount of money that is small when it is misused, mismanaged, and if it is taken to be a personal asset when the citizens are suffering. I will take this time also to thank the Asset Recovery Honorable Councillor Martin, who also accepted my letter to please recover funds that were taken by district leaders under the assumption from companies that was intended for development purposes for the citizen of District 2.
Former President George Weah has provided clarity on the Chinese government's suspension of the construction of 2 overhead bridges during his administration. The former president attributed the suspension to geopolitical tensions between China and the United States. In 2018, during a forum on China-Africa Cooperation Summit in Beijing, the Chinese government announced several development projects for Liberia, including the construction of 2 overhead bridges aimed at easing traffic congestions around the ministerial complex and along the SKD Boulevard. According to Weah, his administration had completed all the required documentation for the bridge construction, but declined to become entangled into international political disputes. Weah added that the Chinese government was seeking Liberia's involvement in what he described as broader political disagreements with the United States, an approach he said his administration firmly rejected.
The mission complex that the Chinese government face now is something that will come together. Everyone believe that simply because they gave you something, so we'll get involved, we want to go politics. I was the president, I said, no. If they charge you on human rights, let's discuss it. You cannot, Liberia will not come in the middle. Because Liberia is a partner to America, and Liberia is a partner to you. That's what you're fighting. That will come. As myself, but then while we're talking, we'll suspend what we say we want to do well for later on. and they're all in United. So it's a sin. Nothing new. Nothing new. And there's so anything new. There's so anything new. Next election, we're going to vote against it. All the law, we're going to the police and all the vote against us. I can say, 12 years. And the same government now is still 100 days, they will build all the roads from Saturday. They use I won't say use, we allow them to vote for this element. And I think I go see on radio and your government is Cuba, big government or big government. But they don't understand what they came from. When they came from the street. So when they came from refugee camp, we brought them, we give the understanding guy, we be the best guy, vote for him. And these are the people that are on TV talking that of rubbish.
His former Liberian President George Weah, they're speaking. Liberia on Monday joined members of the United Nations Security Council to call for immediate release of Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro, who was recently arrested by the United States government during an emergency meeting at the United Nations headquarters in New York. Liberia's permanent representative to the UN, Ambassador Louis Broom, who spoke on behalf of the A3 countries, called for restraint. The Liberian diplomat urged all parties to de-escalate tensions and adhere strictly to international laws. He emphasized the need for peaceful and political resolutions in the U.S.-Venezuela saga.
Mr. President, the A3 aligns itself with the recent communique of the African Union on the situation in the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and continues to monitor developments there with deep concerns. In particular, we note reports regarding the detention of President Nicolas Maduro and his wife and incidents involving Venezuelan institutions. Such developments present serious challenges not only to Venezuela's internal stability, but also underscore the imperative to safeguard the broader peace and security of the region. The A3 remains steadfast in its commitment to the fundamental principles of international law, including the full respect for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of states, as enshrined in the Charter of the United Nations, in the interest of regional stability and international peace. We believe these are essential foundations for international cooperation and peaceful coexistence.
Is Liberia permanent representative to the United Nations, Louis Broom. Across the border now, Central African Republic President Faustin Archange Touadéra has won the third term after securing an outright majority in last month's presidential elections. Provisional results shows the 86-year-old mathematics professor was widely expected to win after the main opposition coalition boycotted the poll, citing concerns about electoral fairness. Touadéra campaigned on his security record in the chronically unstable nation after rebels seized power in 2013, a crisis that led the government to enlist support from Russian machineries and Rwandan soldiers. He has faced heavy criticism after a 2023 constitution removed term limits, allowing him to keep running for office. And President Donald Trump says the U.S. oil industry could be up and running with increased operations in Venezuela within 18 months after a surprise military operations removed President Nicolas Maduro from power. Trump told NBC News that a tremendous amount of money will have to be spent, and the oil companies will spend it, and the oil companies will spend it, and then they will get reimbursed by us or through revenue. Representatives from major U.S. petroleum companies plan to meet the Trump administration later this week. BBC partner CBS News reported analysts previously told the BBC it could take tens of billions of dollars and potentially a decade to restore Venezuela former output. So in this news, here once again, our top stories. Liberian Senate repasses put reform bills against President Joseph Boakai previous veto as government affiliate and political commentator Henry Costa alleges pro tem Kanga Lawrence of pursuing self-interest. Agent of LDA Maron Swain accuses the acting director Fazaro Biako of assaulting him for a napkin, but LDA Public Relations Department describes the assertion as false and misleading. Nobel Peace Prize laureate Lema Bowie describes Joe ex-president Charles Taylor administration as total fear, intimidation, and gangster regime. Across the border, President Donald Trump says the U.S. oil industry could be up and running with increased operations in Venezuela within 18 months after a surprise military operation removed President Nicolas Maduro from power. And Central African Republic President Faustin Archin Touadéra has won the third term after securing an outright majority in last month's presidential elections, a provisional results shows. Many thanks to all of our contributors, editors, and reporters who help in making this edition of King's News Boom sources for more news and information on this station. Do join us at 1 p.m. this afternoon, or better still, at 6 p.m. for a fresh edition of the program. Thanks to Kwame Brown, who brought us the news bulletin. On behalf of the entire team, my name is Cornelius Johnson. I presented. Many thanks for listening and watching. Good morning.